proposed to go into open business? Okay, and the first notice of motion is Councillor Cusack.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mooney. I'll take the motion as read, Chair, to speed up events. This motion's pretty self-explanatory and it speaks for itself, so I don't imagine there will be a lot of debate. And the reason I was inspired to propose this motion is as a result of my own personal observations and having been contacted by numerous constituents, particularly experts such as driving instructors who know our areas like the back of their hands, and they've expressed extreme frustration regarding serious shortcomings in our city and district signage and road safety measures. As many of you know, clean, safe communities is my strapline and it's a priority for my constituency. And this extends to road safety in particular. And so as a member of the Road Safety Committee, I also declare an interest. But sometimes there can be confusion about where the responsibility for roads lie. And I know we've all experienced the council being lambasted for issues such as potholes, white lines and hazards, which are the responsibility of the Department for Infrastructure. They are similarly responsible for the condition of road safety signage and structures, which I believe has been sadly neglected these past years. Now, while I appreciate DFI can be a hit and miss when it comes to requests for action on individual issues, this relies on reporting by either ourselves as reps or the public, and that doesn't always happen. We can't have our eyes everywhere. It also means that only one hazard is dealt with at a time, and this incurs greater costs and man-hours. It's not economically sensible. My belief is that a full audit of our council road signage would produce a body of collated information which can be used to create a work plan whereby multiple dirty, defective, obstructed and absent signage can be tackled as a series of sweeping schemes, costing less overall and being more productive. And I hope Minister O'Dowd can recognise and take action on that. The Health and Safety Executive for Northern Ireland states, by law, traffic routes must be suitably indicated where necessary for reasons of health and safety. They should be constructed to highway code standards. They should be clear and easy to understand, obvious enough to be noticed, clean and well maintained so that they're always visible and reflective and lit if they need to be visible in darkness. They further state that DFI has a duty to maintain and provide signage to keep road users and pedestrians safe. Unclear, dirty, damaged or absent signage creates a hazard to the general public. In conclusion, it goes without saying that the safety of every single road user and pedestrian should be the foremost priority for us all. When we get behind the wheel, we are effectively responsible for what can be a lethal weapon. While we are taught our highway code and how to drive considerately and safely before our tests, although we have a proportion of reckless people who have no care or thought for the lives of others, we also need DFI to do everything they can and make sure directional and safety signage is up to standard. I hope you all agree and will support. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have two on the list, so Councillor Leonard and then Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Mayor, and I too will declare an interest on the Road Safety Committee. I would like to thank Councillor Cusack for bringing forward this motion. Promoting road safety is an extremely important task for all of us here in the Chamber and for every road user. There are many components that contribute to safer roads. This includes adequately positioned and maintained signage, as mentioned in the motion, compliance with the highway code, driving attitude and behaviour. Another extremely important component is the actual road infrastructure, and we must never ever lose sight that the most important road infrastructure issue in this region is a long overdue upgrade of the A5. During my career in the fire service, I have regrettably attended road traffic collisions night and day on the A5 from Ochnacloy to Derry. Collisions that have sadly resulted in deaths, serious injuries, and devastating impacts on hundreds of families. I'm sure some of you will have driven on the old A4 from Ballagolly to Dungannon through Cabra, and this road was notorious for road deaths and serious injuries. Since the new dual carriageway from Ballagolly to Dungannon has been opened, road deaths and injuries have thankfully reduced significantly. As you're all aware, the public inquiry into A5 was completed towards the end of last year. And I know that the Minister and his staff are painstakingly working their way through the findings, word for word and line for line, ensuring that there will be legislative compliance with his decision. I, like all of you in the chamber here today, I'm sure are looking forward to a positive decision on the upgrade of the A5. I know that finance is always a challenge, but some good news from the Northwest Regional Group earlier this week that was attended by members here and members of the Shared Island Unit have guaranteed their commitment of 600 million to the A5 in addition to what the Shared Ireland Fund has been allocated. So to finish, my thanks again to Councillor Cusack for the motion, and we are happy to support it. For my august, thank you.
Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in. I'd also like to declare an interest as a member of the Road Safety Committee. Road safety is an issue which should unite each and every one of us in the chamber. It's imperative that we acknowledge and advocate for every area that can make a difference to road safety, not only in our own areas, but throughout the district and actually the country as well. For me, road safety is not and should not be a party political issue or even a political football. It should be an issue that should bring us all together. Since elected, I have worked on many areas of road safety daily, with a particular focus on signage. Across the rural DA of the Fahan and indeed further field, there's missing directional signage, missing hazard signage and missing informational signage. We also have signage that is not visible due to overgrowth, dirt and graffiti, which is often sectarian, as well as broken signage. I have been pleased to have lobbied and seen installed new equestrian signage, as well as directional signage within the Brady and other rural areas of the Fahan. I know that this has come as a great comfort to those using the section of the A5 that it has been installed in, and the hinterland which the horse riders use. We need to ensure that we have proper signage in place to aid all of us who use the road, whether pedestrian or using a vehicle. Now, it would also help our emergency services and those who travel to the area that are not familiar with the speed, potential hazards, or even the road names. We as a party support the motion, and it's called to write to the Minister for Infrastructure to request an immediate and full survey, and we would encourage and be very hopeful that this is done as quickly and efficiently as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we're happy to support the motion. Look, our road transport network is deteriorating. It's been deteriorating now for many, many years. And we can see that in the signage on the roads. We can see that in the state of the roads in terms of the potholes. And when we met with DFI officials, they've basically told us we don't have the budget to properly fix our road network. And this is not the minister now that's in charge. It's been consecutive ministers, it's been consecutive Stormont executives that are responsible for this. And when we've met with DFI officials, they think that the whole road network needs an overhaul, resurfacing, and much of the new signage. It does feel, driving around, like the signage is getting worse and dirtier. And that's very important. So I support the idea that we do an audit. And look, if Stormont isn't prepared or able to fund this, I think we should be looking to the Shared Ireland Fund again, because you contrast now many of the roads in the south to the roads in the north, and there is a growing difference, unfortunately. So it's certainly something that needs action done. Thank you, Mayor.
No more indicated speakers. So, Shauna, do you want to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks everybody for your support. Obviously, road safety is primary when it comes to protecting our citizens here, and the state of our roads is diabolical at the moment and probably has led to more accidents and definitely deaths than we should ever deem acceptable. And if one life can be saved by improving a sign or a pothole or a surface or direction, then we've done well. I also would like to put a plea out to the public there. The amount of terrible driving out there, inconsiderate driving, reckless driving, people not indicating I've never seen it so bad. I don't know why. I don't know why people don't have that consideration. I've seen so many people on their phones while driving with children in the car doing the school run. And I'd ask them at a request, they would just stop and think about the impact of their actions, their selfish actions on others. Because if what they do causes a death or an accident, then that's selfish in my view. So thank you. Thanks everybody for your support.
Okay, I just take it that's unanimous. Yeah, thank you. We'll move on now to the next notice of motion, and that's you, Lynn.
Thank you, Mayor. I will take the motion as read.
All right, can we have a seconder for that? Yeah, thank you. Go ahead now.
Thank you.
Councillor.
I am bringing this motion to the chamber today so we can take action on the huge unacceptable waiting times for autism assessments here. I know everyone in this chamber will be aware of this issue and the impact it is having on many families right across the city and district. At the start of this year, over 11,000 children were on the pediatric autism spectrum disorder diagnosis assessment waiting list, with the longest wait standing at a remarkable 4 years and 6 months. Over 3,000 adults were also waiting for an assessment, with 62% of those adults waiting longer than a year. In the Western Trust alone, those figures included 2,238 children and adults waiting for an assessment, 86% of whom were waiting more than 18 weeks. The mental health toll on families and their children is profound. I've had numerous conversations with parents, particularly those with pupils and teenagers in mainstream education, who suspect their children are on the spectrum but struggle to access the necessary support due to the lack of a diagnosis and schools lacking resources for such specialized assistance. Given that we know how important early intervention is, these waits are just unsustainable and actually threatening the opportunities of so many children and people across the North. The long waits also means that autistic people are missing out on vital support, and they have a huge impact on the ability of children in particular to develop key skills. It is yet another example of the two-tier health service that has developed, where those who are able to pay can be seen and those who can't are left to wait. Today, I'm asking Council to take proactive measures by writing to the Minister of Education and Health to develop and present the comprehensive business case that we need to address the totally unacceptable backlog for autism assessment. We also must ensure that the interventions underway by the Department of Health prioritize a regional, accessible, and consistent point of referral and pathway. Of course, we know that this cannot be achieved only by these two departments alone, and we also need to see the support of the Department of Finance in this work. But it is a crucial step in helping every single family that is affected by those long waits. They deserve a health service and an education service that works for them and works for every child. No more delays are acceptable on these issues, and we need to see immediate action from government working with families to help address the problems we are facing. I would urge all members to vote for this motion and stand with everyone who is forced to undergo such long awaits across Northern Ireland. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in. I'm so glad to see this motion being brought forward, not just because of my work within the learning disability field, but more importantly for the many people, families and carers who are currently waiting for testing and diagnosis of autism. As of the 31st of December, there were 11,013 children on the Paediatric Autism Diagnostic Assessment waiting list in Northern Ireland. As stated, the longest wait was 4 years and 6 months. On the same date, there were 3,117 adults awaiting diagnostic assessment, and I do agree that the wait times are quite simply completely unacceptable. The Department of Health has spoken publicly about the cross-departmental autism strategy for 2023 to 2028, an action plan for the implementation and a new standardised pathway for referrals and assessments. We must see the Health Minister taking decisive steps when it comes to reviewing and implementing action. This would greatly enhance and improve the chances of early intervention, access to services, family support, and confidence for the autistic person and those that take care of them. It is heartbreaking that for many families, they will seek private assessment at a cost due to the unacceptable waiting times. And we must join together to lobby to see a genuine change in our pathway to assessment and assessment waiting times. DUP MLAs are bringing forward a motion this week highlighting the lack of measurable targets to assess effectiveness within the current strategy, which is something Autism NI and service users have also highlighted. We as a party will be supporting the motion for all those within our families, our friendship circles and our community as a whole who have had to go through the gruelling wait, and for those who are currently still waiting. We need to step away from warm words on this one and we need to see action taking place. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul?
Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Barr for bringing forward the motion. And I think it's a further addition to the different opportunities that members have taken in this mandate, and particularly to talk about this issue. I think it was one of the first issues that I spoke about whenever I was elected, and I think one of the most interesting deputations that we've had on any of the committees that I sit on anyway so far has been from Janice Scallon, who presented to this committee in relation to the department's new strategy for getting people through the system. It's already been said, and I totally agree, and we totally agree, is that wait times are totally unacceptable, and it's infuriating for everybody concerned. I think sometimes the people that are forgotten about for how infuriating it is people like Janice, who come in and gave us a deputation on it, because they would love to see things moving faster, and I think she made that very, very clear, and her passion at that committee, given her own lived experience with her own children and her own family members, really showed that there are people within the department who want to make a change. And what I have said on here before, and it still stands, because we haven't seen much movement or much change or improvement in relation to it, is that when our children in schools aren't accessing these services and then they move on to adulthood and they are still fighting, or their families are still fighting to get them a statement, let's not even get into the discussion then about the services that they need after that. And again, I'm sure we all deal with constituent queries, and when we contact the trust or we contact other agencies and bodies, they just don't have the capacity to deal with them. And so far, the growing need of special educational needs within our community is not being met with growing resource or growing finance. So I really, really welcome the motion. Happy to support it on behalf of Sinn Féin, and thank Councillor Barr again for bringing it, and hope that we can continue to keep a focus, while it isn't a council issue, continue to keep a focus on this issue on behalf of our constituents. Thank you, Mayor.
No other indicated speakers, so, oh, sorry, Councillor Donnelly.
Look, anything that had to be said has already been said, but just to thank Councillor Barr for bringing it up. I think Councillor Boggs' contribution there just sort of hits the nail in the head. There is families out there, whilst it may not be a council issue, it's a problem that deeply affects this council in many levels, and the support, from talking to parents, right from even from diagnosis, parents will react differently to that diagnosis. But for some parents, it will be, well, look, it's been diagnosed, now we will be able to deal with it, we'll get the help and support. And from the parents I've been talking to, by and large, it's not there, and it just adds the whole problem. So again, thanks to Councillor Barr for bringing the motion. Thank you.
Colin, would you want to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much for everyone who have supported this motion. As a mother of a son with autism, I know firsthand the challenges that families are facing out there, and especially without an assessment. And I completely agree the transition to adult is even worse. I had a personal experience where I had to fight for my son for over 4 years to get a service. So I completely understand. So thank you very much. And I hope that the ministers will recognize the urgency of taking action on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's unanimous too. Yeah. So we'll move on now, and Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to move the tabled motion.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Members in this chamber will be aware, or many members will be aware, I should say, that a body called Employers for Childcare have undertaken a poll which they have conducted amongst their own client base, the childcare providers. The results of this poll have found that 73% of providers have either increased their fees since the start of this year or intend to increase their fees by the end of June. That's 3/4 of childcare providers. As the cost of living continues to rise, albeit at a slower pace, childcare providers have no other option than to raise their fees to cover their overheads, and as a consequence, families are burdened with increased charges. Currently, the average increase in fees stands at approximately 14%, well above the rate of inflation. Clearly, the childcare sector, our childcare sector here, is on its knees. Childcare providers are struggling to cover their overheads as their expenses soar. There's no option but for these costs to be passed on to their client families or face closure of their provision. Results from the Employers for Childcare poll clearly reinforce what has been obvious for months. They demonstratively emphasise that the childcare sector and their client parents continue to struggle financially with these growing costs, and the threat of closure is very real. Sadly, we have already lost a significant, well-established provider in my own Derg area, and we can't afford to lose any more. When the Assembly returned, a motion was brought forward calling for high-quality, affordable childcare. This was unanimously supported within the Assembly. The issue impacts across various Stormont portfolios, including health, economy, education, communities. However, whilst there has been an executive commitment, cross-party discussions need to be expedited to access how they plan to move forward and finance a viable early years childcare strategy that will alleviate the financial pressures on the sector and on families. I'm aware that the Finance Minister, I believe, should be perhaps producing a budget to Stormont tomorrow. I had hoped to table this motion at our last full council, but I was a wee bit beyond the deadline. I still believe that we should be writing to the Executive Office asking for this cross-party approach to the strategy. A strategy, by the way, which has yet to be developed within Northern Ireland. Other parts of the United Kingdom and elsewhere have a strategy, so we need to have this developed, and it has to be on a cross-departmental basis. I urge support for the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Alderman Hussey for proposing the motion. The SDLP are going to support the motion. We recognise that the cost of childcare is one of the biggest burdens on the finances of working families. It's more than the cost of mortgages. It's more than the cost of food. It's more than the cost of utilities. And in some cases, childcare is higher than wages. Families deserve accessible childcare. They deserve quality childcare. They deserve affordable childcare. But what they deserve most is they need support from the government to provide some element of free childcare. And every other region on these islands has it, except for us. So, as Alderman Hussey has stated, our executive does not have a childcare strategy, let alone any plans in place to deliver free childcare for families right across the north. So we support the motion, Derek. The executive must act now to provide support for working families in the form of free and affordable childcare. Thank you.
Alderman Montgomery.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare an interest as I'm a registered childminder. So this issue is quite a big one for me. I'd just like to thank Alderman Hussey for bringing this forward. There's not enough financial help for childcare settings as well as parents. It does seem to be a vicious circle where costs are rising for the childcare setting, whether it be food, insurance, where everybody else's insurance has doubled, maybe ours has trebled, and the parents not being able to afford it. So it does go in a vicious circle, and if there was a strategy in place, it would benefit both the childcare setting and the parent, as well as keeping the childcare settings opened. A lot has closed over the years, especially since COVID, and I just feel that it would benefit both. Thank you.
Caitlin.
Gurma Mayor, and happy to support the motion also. And thank you to Alderman Hussey for bringing it forward. The Finance Minister, Keith Archibald, has prioritised an affordable and high quality childcare strategy within the Executive. Affordable and accessible childcare has been a key priority for Sinn Féin since the restoration of the Executive, and the Executive are continuing to lobby the Treasury to provide money that's needed. It's not an additional ask, it's what we are entitled to. Parents right now are rightly frustrated, as for many parents, childcare costs are unaffordable and placing extreme financial pressures on families in an already challenging time. It is creating a barrier for many parents to work or advance their careers, and childcare workers and providers need supported, just as you've said there, Janice. They are also struggling to make ends meet due to the rising cost of living. Families, workers and providers cannot wait any longer for the strategy. By working together, we can transform childcare for parents, childcare workers and providers.
Thank you. I have no, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add, people before profit support for the motion. I mean, look, there couldn't be an MLA or a minister at Stormont right now who doesn't know that there is a childcare crisis here in the north. We need a childcare strategy, an early years childcare strategy. Costs are going through the roof for parents. I know parents who've had to drop out of the workforce recently because of price increases. I know of childcare providers who've had to close down recently because they can't afford the costs because of inflation and everything else that's happened over the last number of years. So Stormont needs to act. That's why people wanted a restored government, and it needs to happen quickly. There's far too many barriers right now for too many families, particularly women, who end up shouldering the burden of childcare. And, the workers in the sector need to be paid properly as well. And the last thing I'll say is, there is 30 hours available across the water, but we also need to learn from some of the more punitive parts of the Tory childcare strategy that actually isn't helpful for parents, particularly women. We can actually develop a better one here if those lessons are incorporated. Thank you, Mayor.
Christopher.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to err on the side of caution, I'll declare an interest as a board member of a local childcare provider. Thank you.
Alderman McMorris.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in, and thank you for bringing this proposal forward. We in the DUP will be supporting the motion here today as well. We agree with all of the points that was put across by all previous speakers, and we take on board the struggles that childcare providers have with the cost of living. So I'll not keep this going any further. We support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Mayor. Just like Councillor Jackson, just a declaration of interest as a board member of.
Okay, Alderman Hussey, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor. Sincere thanks to all across the full spectrum of the chamber for their support on this. I suppose the glaring factor with regard particularly to encouraging, I suppose, in particular again, females to return to the workplace is childcare. I've seen a figure that the median wage sits at about £25,000. and childcare costs can run between 12 and 14,000 pounds. So there's obviously an impediment there that can be created, and that 12, 14 is per child, by the way. So you know, there's that impediment to increasing valuable workers back into the workplace. Not to mention the educational advantages of children actually being involved in planned childcare and the child's development as well. So a sincere thanks to all for their support of the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and it's clear that is unanimous. Okay, so we'll move on now to councillor Tierney's motion.
Thank you, Mayor. And if you're happy, Mayor, I'll take the motion as read, please.
Seconder, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Everyone in this city and district will know all too well the impact of regional imbalance that exists across the north. No one's life chances should be dictated by the postcode of their birth, but that's the reality of our economy today. Far too many workers here in Derry and Strabane and across the north can't get jobs that pay all the bills, and families end up trapped in cycles of poverty for generations. Some places have done well since the signing of the peace agreement 25 years ago, and other places have been left behind, and that includes places across this city and district. The difference between the council areas with the highest and the lowest levels of economic activity and employment is over 10%. The latest poverty income report showed that after housing costs, the proportion of individuals in relative poverty in Derry and Strabane at 24%, and this was double the rate of those in Lisburn and Castlereagh. That's why the SDLP and my colleague Sinead McLaughlin MLA is bringing forward a proposal for legislation in the Assembly that will ensure that government is taking all the necessary steps to spread jobs and investment throughout the north so that everyone across the north has a chance to succeed. This proposed law is designed to change the way Stormont works by placing binding targets on all government departments to ensure that regional economic balance is fully considered when plans, strategies and initiatives are put together. It will also mandate InvestNI to develop and publish sub-regional targets, and it will help us all in holding the Economic Development Agency accountable. I am pleased that Belfast City Council, Newry, Mourne and Down District Council and Fermanagh and Omagh have all previously welcomed the proposal for this legislation. It is welcome that the Minister for Economy has stated that regional balance is one of his priorities, and that's good, and we look forward to working with him and also holding him to account for delivery in Derry and Strabane. But we have all seen this before. Policies, strategies and plans have all been drawn up before, and I know many of us have spoken out about it in this chamber and on the airwaves about regional imbalance. Those strategies have not brought the change that is needed, and the fact is that the Minister for the Economy cannot do all of this by himself. We need the Health Minister looking at regional balance when he's funding services. We need the Minister for Infrastructure to be tilting the balance to this region in terms of investment. And we need the Education Minister creating the skills pipeline in places that have been left behind. It's the job of every government to address regional balance, and it should be the law of the land. By passing legislation like this in the Assembly will be joining legislators in countries around the world that have all legislated for regional balance, such as Finland, Australia, Croatia and Germany. Those who don't want regional balance to be the law should answer one question: why not? I believe that by making a strong case for this council area, that we can ensure that Stormont finally starts delivering in the way that we know it should for this city and district, and I would urge people to support this motion. Thank you.
Sandra.
Good morning, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Tierney. There is absolutely no doubt that Derry, Strabane and the North West have suffered from decades of neglect, underinvestment, no investment and deliberate misinvestment. Partition was a major factor in sealing the fate of the North West, drawing an unnatural line between Derry City and our natural hinterland in Donegal. This caused both areas to falter with no joined-up thinking in terms of what the region needed or could potentially achieve. Unfortunately, we also saw a government in Stormont that didn't want to see development west of the ban and actively worked against it. In successive years, we have had to run to stand still, the entire city region underfunded. As a party, Sinn Féin have recognised that underinvestment, and we have recognised to address this that we need to address regional imbalance and the inequality that it has caused. I welcome the First Minister Michelle O'Neill's opening address to the new Assembly, setting out our intent for the North West and the need for a reformed Invest NI to promote regional balance, highlighting the need for delivery of the A5 and that regional balance and investment for dairy in the North West are absolutely essential. It has also been welcomed that the Minister for Economy, Minister for Infrastructure and Minister for Finance have all stated that regional imbalance is a priority. Minister Murphy has clearly set out his intent as Economy Minister to invest in the North West, setting up a task force for the delivery of the university, regularly meeting with the Chamber, the tourism sector and the wider business community, highlighting his plans for building the North West economy and advising that regional balance will be a key element of his economic strategy. In setting out his strategy, Minister Murphy pledged to fund local economic strategies and prioritise projects that promote regional balance, such as the expansion of McGee. And in relation to good jobs, Minister Murphy also stated that we must invest in affordable childcare and strengthen our trade unions. I believe even though the Assembly is clearly facing a funding crisis, as it has been funded below need for much too long by a Westminster government who has never sought to address any of these issues. The current executive, particularly Sinn Féin, have a clear objective of addressing regional imbalance, and I am confident from the actions taken by the Minister for Economy that we are moving at pace to address this.
Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for bringing this forward. And I'm very happy to support this motion. I've argued about it on quite a number of occasions. And the stats bear it out. There is an average medium wage of a difference of £130 in the Northwest, this council area, compared to the East. But I do have a but or a however, and I'm not sure if this became the corporate position, how we could stand over it. And the line that says, support all measures to alleviate regional economic imbalances in order to give every citizen equal opportunity to succeed regardless geography. Mayor, not whatever, 3 months ago, I brought a motion and the SDLP and Sinn Féin voted against it, and it was with regards to councillor allowances. There's 11 councils, everybody knows that, and this council, and only this council, is short in around 12–15% compared to the other 10. There are councillors in this chamber that it's their only source of income, it's their only source of economic income. They have childcare issues, like all the rest. They have mortgages, like all the rest. But we can't be writing motions that are contradictory to the position that this council takes. And when you look across this motion, significant regional economic imbalances. And we are reinforcing one in this chamber. And we can talk about the arguments about other people being entitled to a pay rise and a wage rise and all the rest. And 100% will I will argue all day long for that. But we cannot be voting for inequality and then contradicting ourselves when it suits. So therefore, Mayor, I would like to say to the parties in here to take a real think around when they take a stance of reinforcing equality, that they're contradicting the wider picture, and to reconsider that. Thank you, Mayor. But I'll be supporting this motion.
Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to support this motion. And I think that the aspirations contained in it are well discussed in the chamber over many, many years, and that's rightly so. And I think that we should be taking urgent action right now to address regional imbalances and also to uplift, the opportunities for people in this area. Maybe there's an opportunity now to do that, and I think we should do everything we can to seize it. We need more jobs, better paying jobs. We need more investment in the district. We have to act in a way that ensures that fewer young people are leaving Derry and the district to seek opportunity elsewhere. We want this to be a place that more and more people come to, and that means jobs and the infrastructure to go along with it to do that. So if this bill assists in that, we'll be happy to support it. I would like to see the details of the bill because they're not contained in the motion, and I look forward to that being developed out, and we'll have something to say about the various aspects of it. I also think that I've made it clear, and despite the changes that InvestI have made, I'm not sure InvestNI is going to be the organisation that leads a revitalisation of Derry and Strabane district in the northwest. I think that its practices are still steeped in neoliberal capitalism, and that means that it still hands out checks to big corporations, and I don't want to see them just have a that model of economic development for Derry and the district and the entire northwest. But we're happy to support this motion today. Thank you.
Alderman McMorris.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to put on record, we'll be supporting the motion. Anything that kind of tackles the imbalance within the region is always welcomed, so we will be supporting. Thank you.
Councillor, do you want to sum up?
Yes, Mayor, thank you, and thank you to everybody who has offered support for this notice of motion. I agree with Councillor Duffy when she referenced a number of things that the new executive have said that they're going to do to try and tackle regional imbalance, and I've not been shy in this chamber or anywhere else in saying that. Whenever it needed said, I was one of the first people, I think, in this chamber to welcome the fact that the First Minister referenced it in her speech. I also have met with and welcomed the development of the new task force as well. And no issue here today acknowledging and welcoming the fact that tackling regional imbalance is a key objective for all of the Sinn Féin ministers, which is great to hear. What I want to see is delivery. I want to see how this has moved on. I fully accept what's being said, but I want to see delivery. And I think people across Derry and Strabane want to see delivery as well. I'm also happy to hear that Councillor Gallagher was supporting the motion. I was waiting on the but, and it did come. But it's all about me attitude doesn't wash with me, and that's particularly what I heard from Councillor Gallagher. This motion wasn't about councillors' pay, wasn't about anything else. This was about making sure that government ministers in Stormont made the right decisions to tackle regional imbalance. I have always said that in this chamber, when we're talking about councillors' pay, that it's up to the Minister for Communities to set that pay. It's not up to councillors in this chamber, and I stand by that. And by supporting this legislation and by supporting this motion, and furthermore the legislation in the Assembly, that would be calling on the Minister for Communities to do that and tackle that imbalance that exists currently across this council district. Councillor Harkin asked, is InvestNI the body to lead on that fight back for Derry and Strabane? I don't know, but what I do know is that there's a body in charge now to lead, and it's up to us. And with sub-regional targets, it'll be up to us to try and hold them to account. So this is not about trying to change what's there. It's about trying to fix and make sure that we're getting our fair share. And that's what I want to see happen across the city and district. So I think that's why this proposed legislation that we're drafting, and if Councillor Harkin wants to see it, I'm sure we can get something arranged for him to do that. But this is about making sure that we're pushing on. I'm fed up having conversations in this district around rates, regional imbalance. Why is Stormont not giving us this? Belfast gets everything. We hear it every day. This legislation will make sure that we are getting our fair share. Thank you, Mayor.
Right. Okay. I think everybody was unanimous there. So we're moving on now, and Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll take the motion as read. Thank you. There's over 220,000 unpaid carers in the north of Ireland. If we look around this chamber, there's 45 or 50 people here. How many of us are unpaid carers? People in this room provide care and support to sick or disabled friends and relatives. Sometimes we don't realise we're an unpaid carer until we try balancing our responsibilities with work, with caring and with family life, and we crash and burn out. Carers UK have a scheme which will assist employers to build supportive and inclusive workplace for all staff that are carers or that will become carers, ensuring that they feel they're able to maintain their career and continue to provide the care for their loved one. There shouldn't have to be a choice to make. I'm sure it won't come as any great surprise to anyone that 60% of unpaid carers are women. So that means that women are likely to find themselves having to leave the labour market to take up caring duties. The rate of full-time employment among all adults in Northern Ireland is 47%, whereas only 34% of unpaid carers are in full-time employment. And 1 in 3 people with unpaid caring roles here have been forced to leave their work entirely because of the demands of the caring. We often talk about balance, regional balance and economic investment here, but what are we doing to look after our workforce and to ensure that people can remain in jobs they've worked hard to get and often love? It's good news that Britain have introduced new legislation which will give anyone caring for sick or disabled relatives or friends the right to 5 days unpaid leave. The Carers Leave Act is the absolute minimum that should be introduced here, but I actually think we need to go a step further. Why do we always just follow on and take what has been given in Britain, usually a watered down version of that? When our government should be leading the way with this, we should be providing paid leave for carers. The Department for Economy's pending Employment Right Bill offers a unique chance to get this step further and deliver carers leave on a paid basis. This would make the policy much more accessible, and as well as benefiting carers, it would bring big business and economic benefits as well. There'd be greater staff retention, retained income tax and national insurance contributions, and there'd be less spending on social security payments. In my opinion, we should be calling on our Minister for Economy to give it serious consideration and to think about those hundreds of thousands of carers across the north that are unable to stay in work, often falling into poverty due to caring commitments. And just while I'm on the subject of earning a wage and staying in employment, carers allowance is just not acceptable. At the minute, the carers allowance earnings threshold is currently set at £151 a week. 1 penny earned over this limit means a carer loses their entire carers allowance payment. This criteria is a grossly unfair example of the government having its cake and eating it, insisting that the carers allowance is not an income replacement, but then very closely tying eligibility to a carer's weekly income. Increasing these earnings threshold to the equivalent of 21 hours a week at a national living wage would allow more carers to earn closer to a meaningful wage while keeping their allowance payments, making life more affordable and reducing poverty. Unpaid carers are saving the public purse £5.8 billion every year in the north. Here in the west, unpaid carers save the Western Trust £800 million. I think it's time our government starts spending some money in order to support those carers and to ensure that they're able to manage their caring responsibilities while still remaining in employment, and that they'll be able to not be financially punished for having caring responsibilities. I think we as a society need to care for our carers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, for bringing me in, and thanks to Councillor McDaid for tabling the motion. I'm happy to second it, and just to speak in support of it briefly, Mayor. As many people know, I work for a dementia charity, and recently we had dementia training here in the Guildhall, which was a really good insight into the lives of those living with dementia, but also it gives us an understanding of what carers have to go through and the additional stress that they are under providing the care for their loved one. We saw yesterday the Prime Minister's special advisor in relation to carers resigned because he felt that the government wasn't doing enough, and we know from the likes of Carers NI about the work that they are doing to highlight the fact that there's an economic impact in relation to the economy because carers have to take time off work to provide the support to their loved one. But there's also issues in relation to the impact on their opportunities for their own employment as well. So there's a wealth of evidence out there that shows why carers need to get better support. So happy to support the motion that Councillor McDaid has tabled. Thanks, Mayor.
Ashton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Catherine, for the motion. It's a very important motion. And I do agree that all carers should have rights, and that's particularly too in the workplace. Some employers are good at it, some aren't. And it's just to highlight as well the ongoing work and around workers' rights that's going on within the executive at the minute. What we don't want is carers leaving employment, which can have an impact on their finances and obviously then the contribution to the labour market and also their confidence and building upon their careers. I think carers are really, really important. They're there in a role of making someone else's life better and giving them a normal life. So that caring for our carers would be really, really important. And just all the issues that Catherine has pointed out in relation to the money saving element of it and the allowances that carers are on, all of that can be addressed, but it would need to be addressed through you know, additional funding by the Westminster government. So I think that's really important to point out as well. But as I say, thanks for bringing the motion forward. It's a really important one and it's something that should be high on the agenda. Thank you.
Irene.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor McDaid for bringing this motion forward today. As an unpaid carer myself, I know only too well the struggles faced by those caring for an elderly or disabled relative. At present in the UK, there's approximately 5 million unpaid carers, and as Councillor McDaid confirmed, 60% of unpaid carers are women, and they are often not aware of their rights at work, including flexible working, taking time off, and protection from discrimination. Caring for someone is very rewarding, but it can also be very tiring, putting a lot of demands on your physical and emotional energy. A lot of carers simply cope from day to day without getting a short or prolonged break for respite. Responding to the needs of others often takes priority, and this means that carers often forget about looking after their own health and well-being. Society relies on the commitment and compassion of unpaid carers to carry out the selfless act of caring for someone, despite the challenges they face on a daily basis. Unpaid carers are the backbone of our society and often go unrecognised. I'm delighted to learn that a Carers Leave Act has been introduced from the 6th of April in the UK mainland, where employees who are carers will be able to take up to 5 days unpaid leave to better balance work with caring responsibilities each year. Employees in the mainland can take time off in full or half days or in a whole block of 5 days, with those taking time off having the same employment protection associated with other forms of family-related leave, such as protection from dismissal as a result of taking the leave. The DUP welcomes this legislation and now calls for parity for unpaid carers in Northern Ireland, so it can also avail of this vital support, which could mean the difference of someone not having to leave their employment because they need to take care of their relatives and take them to hospital appointments. The DUP also welcomes the request for Council to engage with Carers UK to become a carer confident workplace. This will be a lifeline to many workers within Council and will be a model of good practice which can contribute to the proposed engagement with local employers, carers and care organisations to raise awareness. I note that the Chair and Vice Chair Deborah Erskine of the Assembly All-Party Group on Carers issued a statement on the 3rd of February calling on the UK Government to properly fund our health service and for immediate action from the Department of Health and all health and social care trusts with intervention to relieve the pressures on unpaid carers, properly recognise the contribution they make and provide the support they so desperately need. This is an action that is desperately needed if we are to provide holistic support and fix the services within our health trust. Thank you.
I have no other indicated speakers, so Catherine, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everyone that spoke and has supported the motion. I suppose I agree with everything that was said. Aisling, you're right, some workplaces are brilliant. I work in the trust and we have a very good carers policy, but I'm lucky in that respect. There's others that really could learn from it. And I think that part of the motion about becoming a carers confident workplace, Mary, as you had said, is about providing support to all officers, to all staff, to all council staff, that if they're a carer, then they're going to be supported, they're not going to be judged, and they're going to be given the leave and the time and the support within work and outside of work that they need to continue with their care and duties. I also agree we do need more funding, and let's face it, the Tory government does not care about anyone but themselves, so the sooner they're out the better, and hopefully we might get more funding. But in the meantime, I think we need to be doing what we can here. But thank you very much to everybody.
Okay, again, I think that's unanimous, so we're on to the last motion, and that's yourself, councillor
Thank you, Mayor.
Harkin,
Take
and it's been seconded by councillor Barr. Yep.
Second motion is read, okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Type diabetes isn't caused by a poor diet or an unhealthy lifestyle. Around 12,000 people across the north live with type 1 diabetes. It occurs when someone's body isn't able to produce insulin, and without insulin, a person will die. Diabetes is a lifelong and life-limiting condition, and managing diabetes is a difficult to do day in and day out. There's new technology called the hybrid closed loop technology, and it has the potential to improve the lives of people living with type 1 diabetes. It's been described as an artificial pancreas, and what those who are familiar with it and the experts are saying is that it can make life for people living with diabetes much more manageable and improve mental health. It is a lifelong condition, living with type 1 diabetes, and there's no present cure. So any new development with technology can have a big impact on the people who are living with it. People will have seen that recently NHS England has agreed that it will roll out the new technology, the hybrid loop technology over the next 5 years. And that has led the campaigners here calling for the same. So what the motion is really asking for today is for the council to write to the health minister. They ask for a commitment that the new hybrid loop technology, when it is rolled out, gets rolled out here as well. So there will need to be a funding commitment, and that we also invite in the organisations that are working with people and representing people with type 1 diabetes to come in and give a presentation about what it's like to live with type 1 diabetes and what impact new technology would have on their lives. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. Undoubtedly, type 1 diabetes is a challenging condition to manage, but this new hybrid class loop system, as referenced by Councillor Harkin, is a new device that is here now to aid the management of this condition. As Councillor Harkin said, NHS England and Wales are going to roll this out in the next 5 years to all applicable adults and children if they can ascribe to it. This is on the back of the recommendations by NICE, who's the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence, in a report published last year. In that document, what they say is that this advice is applicable to this jurisdiction as well. So my call would be, as in Councillor Harkin's motion, is that we write to the Minister for Health and ask that this be provided for our local constituents who suffer from diabetes as well. So we fully support and thank Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mayor. And we in the Ulster Unionist Party too will support the motion, but we'd like to make a small amendment. I've sent it there to Teresa. It's just that the Council will write to the Minister of Health and the Minister of Finance requesting their commitment to fund the rollout of this vital treatment. Yep. And I'd just like to take this opportunity as well to thank Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion to Council, but also to take the opportunity to praise the doctors and nurses in the renal unit in Altney Galvin. I usually transport the patients there on a weekly basis, and they all attended 3 times a week. And not one of them ever complained, but they always had great thanks for the way they were treated and for the nursing staff within the renal unit. So I'll leave it there with the.
Seconded the amendment.
Sorry, I was.
Councillor Barr.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion. It's an issue very close to my heart. I have personal experience of the challenges faced by those who are type 1 diabetes, and I can fully appreciate the change that the hybrid closed loop will make the lives of those who suffer from diabetes 1. My daughter suffered loss of sight and a brain injury as a result of abstinent diabetic coma caused by insufficient insulin. So because of her disability, she is unable to monitor her condition at any given time. This development could literally be a lifesaver for many people in her situation and many other sufferers from diabetes 1. So thank you again to Councillor Harkin.
Grace.
And thanks, Sean, for bringing this motion to Council. And just like to say on behalf of Sinn Féin that we fully support this motion. As from a family of 9 myself, there's 6 of us in our house that have diabetes, so it's a completely lived-in experience for me. This fair access to diabetes technologies is much needed. In the NHS in England, there has been a significant improvement for patients who are using the SLIP system. Patients that are now in range on a more regular basis. Now, by in range, that means that their blood sugars are controlled more regularly than they normally are. And the effect that this is having on pregnant women with type 1 diabetes is that there's less children now going into the neonatal units because of this loop system. So 2 of my children ended up in the neonatal unit, 1 in intensive care and 1 in high dependency because of my diabetes. So I completely understand why this would be very important to be brought in to help regulate the blood sugars, because the effects that can have on the unborn baby and then just straight after the birth is unbelievable. The effects that it can have from their blood sugars right through to issues with their lungs, because their lungs are underdeveloped, because the placenta is overdeveloped because of the insulin. So there's a lot of benefits for a wide range of people. In terms of children with type 1 diabetes, I can't imagine, none of my children have diabetes, thank God, but I can't imagine how it feels to have a child with type 1 diabetes. You know, if their blood sugars dip during the night, are you going to be there? Are you going to know what's going to happen? What happens if it happens in school when they're teenagers? They don't have a classroom assistant to help them control their blood sugars. So again, this loop system, if it comes in here, it'll help regulate those children. What children do, and particularly teenagers, is they self-harm. And by self-harm, what I mean is that they don't take their insulin, because teenagers know that if they don't take their insulin, they'll lose weight. And a lot of teenagers want to lose weight, so they purposely don't take it. If their blood sugars are too high, they can't concentrate, they're sleepy. Their education is affected by the fact that they are dazed. If their blood sugars are too low, they feel shaky, they can't concentrate. So the same thing again. So again, for going right through all the demographics here, it's extremely beneficial that they bring in this loop system. The long-term health effects of diabetes can range from heart, kidney, liver, vascular, dementia, eyes, amputations, miscarriages. And I just read it up there, and it kind of gave me a bit of a shock because I have diabetes myself, but it's the 5th most common reason for death in the world.
Councillor, you're now over your time there, just if you finish.
Yeah, no worries. Just to finish it off, I'd just like to say the controlled blood sugars will have a far better effect on the costs that are coming from the NHS than they are at the minute from dealing with the long-term effects of diabetes than they would be if they were dealing with the controlled diabetes. Thank you.
Alderman McMorris.
Thank you. I'm just going to keep this short. We are going to support the motion in front of us. As somebody who is a family member with diabetes, we really know the benefits of any treatments that could be brought forward. And just like to thank Grace for sharing her story. You know, she gave me information there that I didn't really know in regards to birth. So really appreciate that, Grace. Thank you.
Right, I have no other indicated speakers, but we have an amendment on the floor. Is everybody in agreement with the amendment? Yeah, so councillor, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll be brief. Teresa will be happy with that. And yeah, look, thank you to everybody who's spoken in favour of this motion. I think it'll send an important message to those who are living with diabetes type 1 in our district and right across the north, not just to those who are living with it, but to the parents and the carers who are, face the challenge of monitoring it and managing insulin on a day-to-day basis. And, I've learned a bit myself about how diabetes works and how challenging managing the disease actually is. And look, there's a lot of challenges on the health service, a lot of funding demands, and I think this is an important one because we want to make sure those people who are living with it know that we fully appreciate and understand, the scale of the challenges they face and the difference this hybrid closed loop technology could actually make to their lives in a day-to-day way. So I also look forward to hearing from the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation and the T1 Club. They've been great advocates and are great advocates for people living with diabetes. So thank you again for everybody's support.
Okay, so that's all the motions dealt with. Now we're in the open for information. So we have 15, 16 and 17. So 15 responses to motion, 16 sealing list and 17 any other relevant items. Anybody want to respond? Who's calling?
Cormac, just I want to raise an issue under the responses to motions. I think it's appropriate to register my disappointment at the response to the request for a full public inquiry to be held into the murder and disappearance of local schoolgirl Arlene Erkison in 1994. Reading through the response from Minister Long, obviously disappointed she has decided not to go forward with the public inquiry, but I'm also disappointed just at the content of the letter as well. There's no reference at all in that to the actual motion, which referred to the shameful police investigation. That police investigation allowed Robert Howard not only to murder and disappear Arlene Erkison, but he then subsequently went on to murder another schoolgirl in England. And to add insult to injury, the family then were met with numerous obstacles put in their way when trying to have the coroner's inquest. Ultimately then, the shocking scenario transpired where the now PSNI brought forward an application for public interest immunity certificates. And let's remember, this wasn't a conflict legacy case. This was the murder of a 15-year-old schoolgirl. So I think it's a matter of grave regret that Minister Long has decided not to afford the Erkison family probably a final opportunity for some outstanding questions to be answered, and ultimately maybe the return of Arlene's remains. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other matters members want to raise under those 3 items? No, the meeting is now closed. Thank you very much.